This is the brand new OPPO Reno14, a mid-range phone that's priced lower than the iPhone 16, but packs a lot more features. Now, I'm not comparing these two because they're perfect competitors. It's just that the iPhone 16 is a popular phone right now, and context is everything. If I can show you what this phone delivers at a lower price point, maybe you'll be happy to pocket that savings and grab this instead. Now, OPPO was kind enough to send this phone out and partner on this video, but as always, my opinions are my own. Now let's dive into what matters most for a lot of people these days, and that's the camera. The iPhone rocks a 40 megapixel wide lens and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. The Reno14, it comes absolutely stacked with a 50 megapixel wide lens, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and here's the thing, a 50 megapixel telephoto lens that can do 3.5 times optical zoom. Now don't get me wrong, both of these phones take fantastic photos during the day. It really comes down to your style preference. The OPPO Reno14 tends to make pictures look more contrasty and dramatic. The iPhone gives you brighter photos that lift up those shadows. You can see more detail in those darker areas, but it feels like an image you might want to tweak in post. At the end of the day, it really comes down to personal preference. But there is a slight difference in ultra-wide capabilities. The iPhone has a wider focal range at 0.5x, while the Reno14 sits at 0.6x. I know it's minor, but yes, the iPhone lets you capture slightly wider shots. Now both phones stay consistent with their color schemes when switching between ultra-wide and regular wide lenses. But here's where things get really interesting, and that's zooming. The iPhone doesn't have a dedicated telephoto lens. It's 2x zoom, which is cropped from the main sensor. The Reno14, you get true 2x zoom, then 3.5 times from that telephoto sensor, and the image quality is just much better. Now, even though the iPhone can zoom up to 10 times, that's all done digitally. This Reno14 can go all the way up to 120 times. Obviously, at 120 times, you need steady hands, and the AI works overtime to keep things clean. But even comparing 10 times shots, the Reno14 looks significantly cleaner. Now, nighttime photography is always the real test. Both phones handle low light quite well, but I found the iPhone better captured what I was actually seeing color-wise. It was a very yellow night with tungsten lights over the field, and the iPhone nailed that warmth. The Reno did great too, but it tried to brighten up the image, making it look a bit cooler. There's no wrong answer here. It just depends on the look you're going for. But again, the telephoto lens really excels at night, allowing you to get a cleaner image compared to the iPhone. Like when I'm getting a shot of an object or subject that's far, the OPPO just does it better. I will say though, that the OPPO does use AI to clean up the shots, and sometimes it does it very well, but there was one shot where the iPhone looked extremely noisy, but managed to capture the bushes properly. The OPPO phone did a better job of capturing the Purple Heart, but the AI made the bushes look completely black. Now, for 4K video at 30 FPS, both phones look great during the day. Maybe the iPhone is slightly punchier, but honestly, shooting 4K on both devices is fantastic. The front-facing camera comparison is interesting. 12 megapixels on the iPhone versus 50 megapixels on the Reno14. The iPhone always gives that bright HDR look, which we're all used to. Personally, I'm not a fan of that. I think it just looks way too bright. The Reno14 gives me more true-to-life colors with better contrast. My face isn't overblown or overexposed. All right, looking at the new cameras here on the Reno14 from OPPO and the iPhone 16 shooting at 4K 30. We're just doing a little walk. You guys let me know which one obviously looks better, which one has the better microphones. Right now I'm using the one-time zoom on the Reno14. The iPhone doesn't have that, but I can go a little bit wider to sort of match it. But then I can also punch in 2 times, which is a little scary, but at least you have different focal lengths that you can play with, whereas the iPhone, you only have one. Now the iPhone does have stylized filters, the Reno does too, and don't get me wrong, they're all fun to play with. I really like the amber one on the iPhone, I think it looks great, but the Reno14 has tons of AI baked into its capabilities. There's an AI editor that lets you literally recompose photos, change aspect ratios, or fit subjects differently into shots. There's an unblur feature that sharpens images and brings subjects back into focus. You can enhance clarity, remove reflections from windows, which is really handy if you want to see the person inside the car. But in terms of design, both of these phones kind of feel similar in the hand. They have have these rounded tops, they have flat displays. The iPhone is slightly softer on the edges, but not by much. But the big difference is the back design. The iPhone 16 comes in bold, bright colors, while the Reno 14 has this really cool mermaid iridescent pattern that shifts from purple to orange to blue depending on the light. It's a really unique look that other phones don't currently have. Now both use frosted glass, iPhone with ceramic shield, OPPO with crystal shield. Basically, they've got shields, okay? The iPhone does have an extra button though. It's called camera control, and this will quickly launch your camera so you can get right to taking photos. And I'll be honest with you, I never use it, you know? In fact, I've actually rebound it to the Blackmagic app for video instead. And look, I don't think it's a reason to buy the phone, but you know, it doesn't take away from the phone either. The good news though is that the Reno 14 lets you long press the power button for Gemini. And let's face it, Gemini is just so much better than Siri. Apple is really behind with Apple Intelligence. Like for example, I asked both Siri and Gemini to compare the OPPO Reno 14 models, and the iPhone just sent me a website link, whereas Gemini gave me a full breakdown of both phones with the pros and cons. Now back to design for a second, you do get a bigger phone with the Reno 14. It's thinner but taller, with a 6.59-inch display compared to 6.1 inches on the iPhone. Personally, 6.1 is a little too small for me. That 6.5 to 6.6 inch range is perfect. Anything bigger gets a little bit unwieldy. Anything smaller feels like the display is a bit too small, at least for me. Now the iPhone uses Face ID to scan your face to log in. It's more secure than the facial recognition OPPO is using just because of the extra sensors, and it's more consistent since it doesn't fail in darker environments. But you do have an optical fingerprint sensor on the Reno 14, which the iPhone doesn't have. Both phones have stereo speakers. I found that the OPPO tended to emphasize the highs, whereas you get a bit more of a balance on the iPhone. I'm gonna play a little test and you guys let me know which one sounds better. Now we gotta talk about the displays, and they're both fantastic. They're both OLED with the same amount of pixels per inch. The iPhone does get brighter at 2000 nits of peak brightness versus 12,000 nits on the Reno 14. But honestly, 1200 nits is plenty for outdoor use. But here's my deal breaker though. I personally cannot use a 60 hertz display anymore. The iPhone 16 is stuck at 60 hertz, while the Reno 14 can go all the way up to 120. As an enthusiast who's used to higher refresh rates, 60 hertz feels choppy to me. Like regular consumers might not care, and I get it, but once you go 120 hertz, it's really hard to go back. In terms of performance, we know that the iPhone's A18 chip is incredibly fast. Like we know what Apple's silicon can do. The MediaTek Dimensity 8350 in the Reno 14 is fast enough for everything. Emails load quickly, browsing is smooth, multitasking works great. I got a consistent 30 FPS playing Diablo Immortal, and temperatures hovered around 33 to 36 degrees Celsius, while the iPhone felt warmer to the touch. As for the battery, the Reno 14 packs a 6,000 milliamp hour battery versus the iPhone's 3561 milliamp hour battery, and that's a massive difference, right? The iPhone gets me through a day, but if I'm out late, I might need to top up. The Reno 14, I can go a full day, full night, and halfway through the next day without having to worry. But when it comes to fast charging, the Reno 14 does 80-watt Super VOOC fast charging. Like you can top this thing up incredibly fast. The iPhone maxes out at 30 watts wired. Like it's just not fast enough compared to other competitors on the market. Now the iPhone does have wireless charging, which the Reno 14 doesn't, but the Reno 14 Pro does have wireless charging, and you can wirelessly charge that thing at 50 watts using their AirVOOC technology. In terms of software, it comes down to personal preference. It's Android versus iOS. You'll like what you like, and that's that. But you do get ColorOS with the OPPO device, and everything looks nice. You know, you have a clear, kind of transparent background for your notifications, but obviously, since it's Android, you can customize the colors to whatever you like. This is also running Android 15. iOS is iOS, right? Like everyone has the same looking operating system. It just really depends on what you like. Look, both phones are fantastic, right? But for the price, you're getting incredible value with the Reno 14. And if for whatever reason, you don't want the Reno 14, there's two other Renos to choose from. There's the more affordable Reno 14F. If you want to save money, you lose the telephoto lens, get a slightly slower processor, but keep everything else. And if you want something more, there's also the Reno 14 Pro. It adds wireless charging, gives you an upgraded 50 megapixel ultra wide camera, a slightly faster processor, and a bigger display. The best part though is that all three Reno 14 models retail for less than the iPhone 16. If you're into photography and want that extra telephoto lens, or if you value battery life and fast charging, the Reno 14 delivers serious bang for your buck. Now, if you're interested in checking out any of the Reno models, I will place a link in the description down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.